It is 3 a.m. You are lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and the blue light from your phone is the only thing illuminating the room. You have just spent 2 hours doom scrolling through LinkedIn updates and Instagram stories, watching people who seem to have it all figured out. They are launching startups, traveling to Bali, or buying their first homes, while you are dreading the alarm clock that is set to go off in 4 hours. This is the modern existential crisis. It is not just about hating your job. It is about the sinking realization that the script we were handed, the one that says, go to college, take on debt, get a stable 9-to-5, and wait for retirement is broken. We did everything right, yet we feel like we are running on a treadmill that is slowly speeding up while the emergency stop button is broken. Welcome to the campfire. Tonight, I want to have a real conversation with you about breaking that script. We are diving into a book called Side Hustle by Chris Guillebeau, specifically the concept of going from idea to income in 27 days. But before you roll your eyes and think this is another one of those get-rich-quick schemes or a lecture on how you need to grind 24 hours a day, take a breath. This is not about hustle culture. This is not about burning yourself out so you can buy a Lamborghini to impress people you do not like. This is about buying back your freedom. It is about self-discovery and finding a quiet internal peace that comes from knowing you are not dependent on a single employer for your survival. In the current economic climate, relying on a single paycheck is the definition of fragility. We have seen the layoffs, the inflation, and the unpredictability of the corporate world. If your entire livelihood depends on the mood of a manager or the quarterly earnings report of a faceless corporation, you are not free. You are leasing your life. Chris Guillebeau argues that a side hustle is not just a trend, it is the new job security. But here is where we need to make a massive distinction, one that most people miss, and it keeps them trapped in a cycle of exhaustion. We need to clarify the difference between a part-time job and a true side hustle. In the United States, we often confuse the two. You might think that driving for Uber on the weekends or picking up a shift at a coffee shop is a side hustle. It is not. Those are part-time jobs. When you work a part-time job, you are still trading your time for money. You are operating with the mindset of an employee. If you stop driving, the money stops. If you do not show up to pour the coffee, the income dries up. You are still building someone else's asset, not your own. You are renting your time to a platform or a boss, and no matter how hard you work, the ceiling is fixed. It is like trying to get ahead by running up a down escalator. You have to keep moving just to stay in the same place. A true side hustle, however, requires the mindset of an owner. It is about creating an asset. It is about building something that has the potential to scale, something that allows you to design your own life rather than fitting into a slot someone else designed for you. It is the difference between being a cog in a machine and building the machine yourself. Let me illustrate this with a story. Imagine a rideshare driver in a bustling city like New York or San Francisco. Most drivers turn on the app, drive to wherever the algorithm tells them, pick up a passenger, and drop them off. They are passive participants in the system. But then you have a driver who approaches it differently. Let us call him Marcus. Marcus does not just drive, he analyzes. He has an iPad mounted on his dashboard, not for entertainment, but for data. He tracks which neighborhoods have the highest surge pricing at specific times. He monitors the city's convention schedule to know exactly when 5,000 hungry tech executives will be spilling out of the Javits Center. He calculates the exact cost of his gas and depreciation per mile. Marcus realizes that by analyzing this data, he can work half the hours of other drivers, but make double the money. But he does not stop there. He realizes his true asset is not his car, it is his knowledge of the city's logistics. he eventually stops driving altogether and starts a consulting service for delivery companies, helping them optimize their routes based on the data he collected. Or perhaps he writes a digital guide for new drivers on how to maximize their earnings and sells it online. That is the shift. The driving was the part-time job. The data analysis and the eventual product were the side hustle. Marcus moved from selling his time to selling his value. He moved from being a laborer to being an architect of his own income. This is the core philosophy we need to embrace. When you are working a standard job, you have no pricing power. Think about it. If you are a server at a restaurant, you cannot walk up to your manager and say, "I am feeling particularly charming today, so I am going to charge the customers $50 an hour for my service." The market and your boss sets your value. But with a side hustle, you regain that autonomy. You create a product or service, and the market tells you directly what it is worth. You have the ability to tweak, pivot, and scale. You get to decide that your unique skill, whether it is graphic design, dog walking, or vintage reselling, has a specific value. The journey of building a side hustle is actually a journey of self-actualization. It forces you to ask yourself, what am I good at? And how can I help people? It is a spiritual practice in disguise because it demands that you listen to your inner voice and ignore the noise of societal expectations. It allows you to experiment with different versions of yourself without the risk of quitting your day job and starving. It is a sandbox for your potential. However, a warning before we move forward. Do not mistake this for a call to immediate, reckless action. We often see motivational videos telling us to burn the boats or leap and the net will appear. That is dangerous advice for most of us who have rent to pay and groceries to buy. The goal here is not to gamble your safety, but to build a bridge. We are going to look at how to construct this bridge brick by brick, using the 27-day framework as a guide, but adapting it to a pace that fits your mental health and your reality. We are going to explore how to find that intersection between what you love, what you are good at, and what people are actually willing to pay for. In the next part of our conversation, we are going to look at the specific mechanics of finding that idea. We will talk about why being multi-talented can sometimes be a trap, and why you do not need to be a genius to start. You just need to solve a simple problem. We will discuss the concept of the drill bit and the hole, and how shifting your perspective from selling to helping changes everything. So, pour yourself another cup of tea, settle in, and let us prepare to dismantle the limiting beliefs that have held you back from starting. We have established that the goal is not to get a second job that drains your soul, but to build an asset that buys your freedom. But this leads us to the most paralyzing question of all, the one that keeps most of us doom scrolling instead of creating. That question is, what do I actually do? We live in an era that glorifies the polymath, the idea that you need to be good at everything. You scroll through social media and see people who are simultaneously coding experts, gourmet chefs, marathon runners, and cryptocurrency investors. It creates this overwhelming pressure to be a jack of all trades. But the truth is, trying to be everything usually leads to being significant in nothing. The secret to a successful side hustle isn't about widening your net until it breaks. It is about deepening your hook. Think of it as becoming T-shaped. The vertical bar of the T represents your depth, your core competency. This is the one thing you are undeniably good at, whether that is writing code, knitting sweaters, or organizing chaotic spreadsheets. The horizontal bar represents your ability to apply that deep skill across different contexts. For example, let us say you are a graphic designer who spends all day in Photoshop. That is your depth. The mistake most people make is thinking their only side hustle option is to find more clients and do more design work on the weekends. That is just more of the same grind. Instead, look at the horizontal bar. Could you teach Photoshop to beginners? Could you create a template pack for small business owners who cannot afford a designer? Could you write a guide on how to optimize images for web speed? You are taking your core skill and pivoting it into a product or a teaching mechanism. You are not just a doer anymore. You are a guide. This is how you stop trading hours for dollars and start trading value for income. But how do you know if anyone actually wants what you are selling? This brings us to a fundamental concept in marketing that is often attributed to Harvard professor Theodore Levitt. It is a story about two hardware store employees selling a drill. Imagine you walk into a store looking for a drill. The first employee, let us call him Chad, immediately starts listing off specs. He says, "This is the X5000. It has an 18-volt lithium-ion battery, a brushless motor, and creates 3,000 rotations per minute." He is technically correct, but he is overwhelming you. He is obsessed with the product. Then you talk to the second employee, Sarah. Sarah looks at you and asks a simple question. What are you trying to build? You tell her you need to hang some floating shelves in your first apartment because the walls look bare and depressing. Sarah nods and says, "Okay, you do not need the industrial drill. You need a 1/4-inch hole in the drywall." She hands you the exact tool for that job. Levitt's lesson is simple but profound. People do not want to buy a 1/4-inch drill. They want a 1/4-inch hole. In fact, they do not even want the hole. They want the feeling of a cozy, decorated home that makes them feel like an adult. When you are brainstorming your side hustle, stop obsessing over the drill, your product, your logo, your website. Start obsessing over the hole, the problem your customer is trying to solve. If you can identify a genuine pain point that people are experiencing, the product will almost design itself. Let me give you a concrete example from the book that perfectly illustrates this. There was a couple who decided they wanted to go on a cruise vacation. Now, for many of us, planning a trip can be a nightmare of open tabs and conflicting reviews. This couple had never been on a cruise before, and they were flooded with questions. Which deck is quietest? Is the drink package a scam? Do you have to dress up for dinner? They scoured the internet, checking Reddit threads and travel forums, but they could not find a single consolidated source of honest answers. Most people would just complain about the lack of information and move on. But this couple saw the whole. They realized that if they were frustrated, thousands of other travelers must be frustrated too. They went on their trip, documented everything, and when they came back, they did not just show off their photos. They combined their experience with the husband's writing skills to create a dedicated blog that answered every specific, nitty-gritty question a first-time cruiser would have. They did not invent cruising. They did not build a ship. They simply curated information to solve a specific anxiety. Within a year, that blog was generating $3,000 a month. Why? Because they weren't selling a blog. They were selling peace of mind. They identified a gap between "I want to do this" and "I do not know how," and they built a bridge. This reveals the core formula for a successful side hustle. Awareness plus solution equals income. It starts with awareness. You have to train your brain to stop ignoring friction. We are wired to ignore little annoyances. When the printer jams, we kick it. When a website is confusing, we close the tab. When we cannot find a product, we give up. From now on, I want you to treat every moment of frustration as a potential gold mine. Every time you hear yourself or a friend say, "I wish there was an easier way to do this," that is, the universe handing you a business idea on a silver platter. However, identifying the problem is only half the battle. The other half is the willingness to actually solve it. This is where procrastination disguises itself as perfectionism. We tell ourselves, "I will start this project when I have the perfect name," or "I will launch when I have 1,000 followers." We push it to tomorrow. But in the world of side hustles, tomorrow is a comforting lie we tell ourselves to avoid the possibility of failure today. The bridge from idea to income is paved with imperfect action. You do not need a business degree to solve a problem. You just need the empathy to understand someone else's struggle and the courage to offer a solution. In the final part of our conversation, we are going to talk about the mindset shift required to sustain this. We will discuss altruistic selfishness, the idea that the more you give, the more you get, and why treating yourself like a startup company is the healthiest boundary you can set for your career. We will look at how to systemize your hustle so it doesn't become just another job that keeps you up at night. We have arrived at the final and perhaps most difficult realization of this journey. It is a concept that feels contradictory, almost like a Zen koan. To truly serve yourself, you must completely forget about yourself. There is a fascinating biological reality we have to acknowledge. We are wired for survival. We have what evolutionary biologists call the selfish gene. At our core, we are programmed to look out for number one, to hoard resources, and to protect our own interests. This is not a moral failing. It is just how we survived the Stone Age. However, in the modern economy, this instinct can actually be your downfall. If you approach a side hustle thinking only about how can I make money, how can I get rich, or how can I quit my job, you will likely fail. Why? Because nobody cares about your bank account. Nobody cares about your desire to retire early. They only care about their own problems. This brings us to the concept of enlightened self-interest. It is a mindset shift that changes everything. To get what you want, freedom, money, autonomy, you have to become obsessively focused on giving other people what they want first. It is a paradox. You have to be altruistic to be successfully selfish. When you look at the most successful side hustlers, they are not master manipulators. They are master empaths. They put themselves in the shoes of the person struggling to solve a problem, and they genuinely want to help. If you cannot provide value, you cannot extract value. It is that simple. So, every time you sit down to work on your project, ask yourself, am I doing this to feed my ego, or am I doing this to feed a need? The market rewards contribution, not intention. Now, let us talk about risk. When the excitement of a new idea hits, there is a dangerous, seductive whisper that tells you to burn the boats. You might feel the urge to march into your boss's office, slam your resignation letter on the desk, and dive headfirst into your new venture. Please, do not do that. That is not bravery. That is bad math. Treat your life like a startup company. In a startup, you need capital money to burn while you figure out the product market fit. Your current day job, the one you might find boring or frustrating, is not your prison. It is your angel investor. It is your venture capital firm. That bi-weekly paycheck is the funding that allows you to take risks without the fear of homelessness. It pays for your website hosting, your camera gear, your prototypes, and your mistakes. If you quit your job too early, you operate from a place of desperation. You start making short-term decisions just to pay rent. You take on bad clients, you compromise your prices, and you burn out. But if you keep your day job while you build, you have the luxury of patience. You can build slowly. You can say no to bad deals. You can wait for the right opportunity. Use your 9 to 5 to fund your 5 to 9 until the side hustle is stable enough to stand on its own. Finally, we need to talk about the unsexy part of the equation, process. We often romanticize the hustle, the late nights, the chaotic energy, the caffeine-fueled sprints. But a side hustle that relies on you grinding 24/7 is not a business. It is just a high-stress hobby. To truly buy your freedom, you need to think about systemization. In the book, Chris Guillebeau emphasizes that you are not just the CEO of your side hustle. You are also the janitor, the marketing department, and the customer support lead. If you do not create a system, you will drown. Systemization means taking a task you do repeatedly and writing down the exact steps to complete it. It sounds boring, but it is liberating. Let us say you want to start a YouTube channel. A chaotic creator wakes up and thinks, "What should I film today?" They scramble to find a topic, struggle with the camera settings, edit until 4 in the morning, and then collapse. A systemized creator has a checklist. Step 1, ideation. Step 2, scripting. Step 3, filming. Step 4, editing. Step 5, distribution. By turning your workflow into a repeatable recipe, you remove the decision fatigue. You stop wasting energy wondering what to do, and you just execute. Eventually, this documentation becomes an asset in itself. Once a process is written down, it can be improved. It can be automated with software. Or, best of all, it can be delegated to someone else. This is how you scale. This is how you move from being a freelancer to being a business owner. And in some cases, the process itself becomes the product. Remember, people are busy. They are overwhelmed. If you have figured out a streamlined way to organize a pantry, plan a wedding on a budget, or study for the SAT, that system is valuable. You can sell the how-to just as easily as you can sell the service. So, here we are. We have looked at the mindset of the side hustle, the art of finding problems to solve, and the discipline of treating yourself like a business. The book Side Hustle promises a transformation in 27 days. But the truth is, the timeline is up to you. The most important day is not day 27, it is day 1. The world is full of people with million-dollar ideas who are still sitting on the couch waiting for the perfect time. But as we know, the perfect time does not exist. The only thing that exists is the present moment and the choice to do something with it. You do not need permission. You do not need a fancy degree. You just need to look around, find a problem, and offer a solution. I want you to leave this campfire with a challenge. Do not just close this video and scroll to the next dopamine hit. Take 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Turn off your phone, sit in silence, and ask yourself, what is one frustration I encountered today that I could help solve? Write it down. That is your seed. That is where your freedom begins. If this conversation sparked a light in you, if you felt that shift in perspective, please let me know by hitting the like button. It helps us keep the campfire burning and reach more people who are looking for a way out of the maze. And share this with that friend you know, the one who is always talking about their big ideas but needs that extra push to start. I am curious. What is the one what-if idea that has been living in the back of your mind? Drop it in the comments below. Let us speak it into existence. Thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, the universe rewards action, not just intention. I will see you in the next video.